Well, thanks so much for joining us for this edition of Making Sense, where we talk finances, your budget, and really how to make the best decisions when it comes to your money. Joining me from Forest Area Federal Credit Union, Alex Lutke, and a real estate agent and expert, Jamie Fellows Garno. Thanks so much for joining us, Alex. You're here often. We appreciate that. We brought in Jamie today it's kind of a giveaway of what we're going to be talking about, and that's the real estate market right now, which is something of a lot of interest to an awful lot of people around Northern Michigan. So, Jamie, I'm going to put you right on the spot.
Sure.
How would you describe what the current real estate market is like here in Northern Michigan?
I think I would start with saying that we're still busy. I'm still seeing a low inventory. We have our prices have gotten a little softer, not in a bad way, but I think that it makes it easier for a buyer to come on the scene and make reasonable offers and get them accepted. We're still seeing multiple offers. We're still seeing fast turn times on selling properties. So overall, I'm encouraged. I think it's still a pretty strong market.
And I guess it's always a good market for someone, right? It's either
Right.
it's really a good seller's market or a good buyer's market. And it feels like over the last couple of years, it's been a tough time for those buyers. Multiple offers. Are we still experiencing that kind of situation, or not to the extreme that we were a year or two ago?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. We're still experiencing it, but it's a toned down version. So we're not seeing all these cash deals that are going 30, 40, 50, $100,000 over. We still are seeing over full price on occasion. We're seeing a lot of at full price. We're still seeing multiple offer situations and properties that are desirable. And we do have some that might come in $5,000 or $10,000 lower if it's been on the market for a little while. But overall, it's a pretty healthy market. It feels like things are in a good place as far as not being so blown out of proportion, but still holding value.
Right. Let me put you on the spot. The last couple of years, though, from a realtor standpoint, pretty extraordinary times.
Oh yeah, this is my I think 23rd or 24th year in real estate, and so I've seen both the ups and downs. And one thing I've never seen is anything like this. Truthfully, it was really hard for a buyer, at least let's say like a first time buyer or a buyer that maybe didn't have such a big down payment to really jump into the market because there was such heavy competition. And so I think part of the reason that we're seeing some consistency and still a good push in the market is that all of those people who couldn't compete with cash, who couldn't compete with going so far over full price, are now able to jump in and make a reasonable offer and get it accepted. So we have all these backlog of buyers that were in a holding pattern, either because they were nervous to go forward with an unsure market, or they just financially couldn't. And so I think this is a great opportunity for those people who were maybe hesitant to get back in and start looking.
Are you still getting a lot of interest from people not from Northern Michigan? Is Northern Michigan still a hot place of people willing to look? We talked about it a lot during COVID of, well, you can go work anywhere. So
Yeah.
it seemed like, well, let's go work in the most beautiful place on the planet. And that's Northern Michigan. So
Right.
here. Are you still from a real estate standpoint, are you still getting interest from people outside of the area to move here to Northern Michigan?
Yeah, every single day I'm receiving emails or phone calls from people out of the area. I think because we still have to all of us who've been here a long time, our market has really grown a lot as far as the numbers, but really nationally, we're still pretty affordable in our housing. So for somebody moving from, Chicago, California, New York, when they see what they can get here, when they've sold a property there for $1 million, and here you can really get quite a nice place, it's shifting their mindset because they can work anywhere, and it's pushing people here.
Was this what we expected? Is the current state where we are right now, is this where we expected to be after some pretty unexpected times?
I get this question a lot, just, from all different perspectives of what is the market like and what can we project to happen. And I always say, who would have thought during a nationwide pandemic that we would have the biggest real estate boom of all time, or at least of my time.
Right.
And so I find it really hard to predict because if I'm being honest, I questioned what this year would look like, when things were slowing down and rates went up and there was a big hype about these rates are going to cause all these issues. And what I found is that, although it's maybe slowed down, I will definitely say that it's still busy. So, I mean, overall, I feel like we still have a super healthy market considering we don't know what to expect. I mean, it's an election year that tends to play some different parts in how the market goes. And I haven't seen a huge change with that. Rates, although some people it did maybe hold back, the majority of people, it's really not affecting them as much as I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I shouldn't use the word affecting, but it's not stopping them from moving forward. Yeah.
We've accepted.
Yes. Yeah. It just is what it is, right?
It is what it is. What it is. All right. So it's very hard to predict what even next year would look like.
Certainly. I think it's, yeah. I think that's real estate in general. We never really know what to predict until we're in the heat of the moment.
The inventory of homes that are on the market right now, it feels like from the outside looking in, you know far more about this than I do, but from the outside looking in or talking to people that were like, yeah, I'm not selling my house. Then suddenly they found what they could sell their house for. Suddenly it seems like, well, let's try to sell the house, right? Because you have an opportunity, but those folks still have to then go move somewhere else, right? And so what is the current inventory right now on the market? Are people still listing their homes, or do we have enough? Not enough when it comes to the sale of those homes.
So people are still listing. There's tons of reasons why somebody may put their house on the market, but I would definitely agree that there is some hesitation. Thankfully, there's some great loan programs out there that allow people to kind of bridge the gap. They can either take some equity and apply it, or they can close on the new home and then kind of roll over and do a one-time adjustment to their payment to make it feasible for them to move forward. But some people that just doesn't work for. So I would definitely say that part of the reason we don't see as many listings definitely has to do with people not having confidence in finding what they want afterwards. So these programs are making that happen, but not everybody's willing to take that risk.
Historically, it feels like if folks, especially with young kids in the house, wanted to be moved by the time school started. So summer was kind of a busy month or a busy time period in order to get the house on the market and get moved. Mm-hmm. Do we still see that in this unpredictable market, if you will?
Yeah, I would say, right now is kind of the time when I'm doing a lot of pre-listing appointments or listing appointments. People finally have their yards nice. They feel like their landscaping is coming in. It shows better. But again, I've listed houses the day before Christmas and, so it doesn't always matter. The people who can plan things tend to plan more in the spring, summer to list, but there's a lot of unforeseen circumstances that come up and
absolutely
create listings at all times. Yeah.
At all times. All right. So the elephant in the room, I guess, houses are expensive, but also mortgages feel like, from somebody that's not in real estate and somebody that's not in banking, mortgages feel expensive. But Alex, I bet you're going to tell us that historically, they're not, the mortgage rates right now aren't historically as bad as they've been. Am I totally leading you and putting words into your mouth on this one? Where are we with mortgage rates right now, and how should we all feel about them?
Yeah, so that really depends on how far back you want to go back in history. I mean, if you want to go just back to say 2000, yeah, we're pretty high. But if you go back a few decades before that, we're pretty in line with what makes sense from a mortgage perspective. 30-year rates right now, you're probably going to see a high 6, low 7 from a percent perspective, which that would make total sense pre-2000 before that crash happened. So it's not crazy, but if you have a whole generation that's never seen rates like that, And that particular generation is now trying to buy their houses for the first time. And so they're seeing these rates and what a monthly payment is, and they're pretty shocked and they don't quite know what to do with that. So it's pretty interesting to kind of hear those stories of people coming in trying to get those, get a payment and not realizing how much house they cannot purchase because of it. So it's been interesting to kind of watch that play out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like a weird flex right now to have an interest rate that's a 3, or, like everybody's kind of like, everybody feels pretty good when they're like, wow, I kind of sweated over that one for a little bit. I didn't need to so much. But that is something that we need to take into consideration when we go talk to our realtors or when we go talk to our financial institutions, that you're going to have to pay for that house and it's going to come with an interest rate. Is that something that we need to accept for the time being, that interest rates don't normally change on the drop of a hat? Is that just kind of something that if you are going to be in the purchasing realm that you need to take into consideration? Alex, I'll ask you that.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. And a lot of that comes down to what is the Fed going to do with rates? And there's a lot of different things that they're looking at to determine whether they need to move rates. They look at unemployment, they look at inflation, that mysterious number that everyone's trying to wrap their heads around. You are seeing pretty solid numbers. There's some concern when it comes to some of those numbers, but overall, the Fed's determining not to move rates. And so what that's ultimately going to do is it's going to kind of leave rates where they're at for the time being. I know Jamie talked a little bit about rates earlier and kind of being unknown. It's going to really depend on what the information that's going to flow through looks like. And right now, things look okay. So there's really no reason for the Fed to drop rates until we start seeing data that would tell them to do that.
Jamie, let me ask you this. If somebody hasn't bought a house in a long time and they're coming in and talking to you and they're like, we would like to look at this price range for our house, do you have to remind sometimes them that, okay, but it's going to be at this interest rate. And so your payment may be, your $1 million house or $500,000 or $300,000 house may cost you a little bit more than you thought if you haven't bought a house in 10, 12 years. Is that a conversation that you've had to have with clients?
Absolutely. And the bigger thing was somebody who was pre-qualified 6 months ago who couldn't compete in the busy market, that is trying to take that same pre-qualification information and apply it to this market with the rate adjustment. Because if they were pre-qualified for 325 before, they may only, with their debt to income ratio, be pre-qualified to 300 because of the adjustment. So it's kind of a big deal with rates. And somebody who in the past thought it was quite a bit lower. I mean, my recommendation is always, before we even step foot in a home, is to get them pre-qualified, because the pre-qualification does many things. It sets the expectation. It gets them an idea of what the payment looks like so that they don't have sticker shock after they fall in love with a place and realize, oh my gosh, this doesn't work for my budget. I can't afford a $3,000 a month house payment with taxes and insurance. And so by having them pre-qualified, it just really sets them up to be successful. They already have some of those tough conversations if there are multiple people in the purchase, that they can get out of the way, so that when we're finding a place, we know that it's in the price range, the interest rate, everything makes sense, and it all shakes out to make a smooth transaction.
So you get the green light to fall in love with the place rather than heartbreak of no.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
Okay, that's probably wise. And Alex, I assume that's the kind of conversation that you can go into your financial institution and have with them. You would probably encourage folks to come in first and talk to you guys about really what makes financial sense and what someone can afford.
Yeah, absolutely. We have those conversations every day. Love to have that with members, and yeah, love to be able to get people in their homes for sure.
So, Alex, everything's expensive right now. We have had this conversation in this setting on a variety of topics. Everything's costing more. Gas, groceries, everything is costing more. A lot of people are watching pennies closely, whether they have to or whether they just should. But people can end up into a spot where they fall behind on a mortgage. Are you noticing that more? Or is the banking world noticing that more, where more mortgages are falling past due?
Yeah, it's a fair question. The short answer is compared to the last couple of years, yes, the delinquency rates have gone up across the industry, whether that's banks, credit unions, whatever. It has gone up. However, it's really only gone up to pre-pandemic levels. So although it does feel like there's more strain, with all the money that was sent into the economy during the pandemic, it got everyone caught up. Now we're returning to what that pre-pandemic level looks like. We'll see if it kind of levels off at this point, or whether if we're going to see an increase from here. But it doesn't feel like it's any different than what it would have been, say, 2019, 2018. And that I looked at credit unions and what that looks like in the state of Michigan, and that falls suit with what exactly you're reading and all the headlines from the Washington Post and all that. It's very similar to what we're seeing here in the state.
So it sounds like with a lot of this stuff, we need to look a little longer perspective, both with interest rates, mortgage, everything like that. We're a microwave society. We compare things right now, but look over the long run. Which is probably also, I think I've been told by you, Alex, or by guests in the past, that when we consider a mortgage, we also need to consider the long run, that it's not just a one-time payment. It's true with car payments, everything. You're going to be making that payment for a long time. So make sure you know what you're getting into. Okay, so $1 million question. Is now a good time to buy a home, or do I wait for those rates or those prices to drop? First one, who wants to go first on this one? Jamie, you go first. Now is now a good time to buy a home?
So, of course, I'm a real estate agent, so it's going to seem like, well, yes, it's always a good time to buy a home, right?
Right.
But the reality is, yes. I mean, people who waited, when the pandemic started and the prices started to go up, and they're like, nope, it's going to crash. I'm going to wait because I'm going to get these great deals if I wait. And all it's done is continue to go up. And although now we've seen some softening in the market, it's not really that the prices are going down. It's just the offers aren't so like way out of line with the list price. So, if those people 3 or 4 years ago would have got on the bandwagon, they would have gained equity in their home just by the natural growth of the market. They would have gained equity in their home. And so I always believe in any market. I mean, real estate is one of the safest investments. If you buy it, you pay your mortgage, you do the right thing, you upgrade, update as you can, and you ride it out. Even if we did have a fall in the next few years or an adjustment, because everything I'm reading doesn't necessarily point to like a devastation in the real estate market, but you're going to be further ahead than had you waited. And now you have no equity, and and you've not been making those updates and upgrades over those years.
And Jamie, is Northern Michigan perhaps an unusual market in terms of you may not be able to compare what's the desire to live here and be here and the demographic and the range of people that we want to live here. You can't compare that to X city summit. And so I don't want to name a city or state because right. But
you don't want to get any, slack.
Right. Yeah. No apology, Des Moines. But like is Traverse City, what is it hard to do a blanket statement like this is what it's like all across the country, or does Northern Michigan have some unique characteristics and qualities that you have to dig a little deeper into those trends?
Yeah, I definitely feel like, and even Grand Rapids North, we have a little bit different market. I mean, we have a lot more second home market. We have so many lakes and streams and so much natural beauty. We still have larger tracts of land that are rare the further south you go. Even speaking into like the true Northern Michigan into the UP is still really affordable housing and really affordable land. And I think there's been just a huge push with the promotion of Northern Michigan and Traverse City being, I think I read somewhere, like the highest concentration of millennial millionaires in our country. And just we're getting a lot of really great press for Northern Michigan. So even though some things might shake out overall in the economy, I feel like this is a place people want to be, which is always going to make it a little more stable.
I agree. Alex, all right, same question to you. Do I wait for rates to drop, or should I just go ahead and buy that house?
I'll
Wait,
echo
and Alex,
Jamie.
Alex, if you can tell me what rates are going to do, that'd be great. Like, what,
Yeah, me too, please.
just keep it between
Let
the
me
three
pull
of us.
out the crystal ball. See
Yeah, there
what
you
I
go.
can
There you
come
go.
up with.
Is it the same thought with house prices aren't necessarily going to come down? Is it the same notion with the rate in terms of you maybe not waiting until we absolutely see a drop?
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. I mean, when
Yeah.
all the money went into the economy, the Fed said that it was transitory inflation, nothing crazy was going to happen, and then next thing you know, we have 8% inflation. So you don't know. Do I see that happening again? No, because hopefully they learned their lesson this last time. But you don't know. Like you don't know what's going to happen. But
Sure.
The other thing is, what's the alternative? If you're not purchasing a home, what's the alternative for you? And so that's kind of what you have to play out and to determine whether you want to build equity in a home or whether it's time for that or not.
Well, the other alternative, then nice segue into our next question, Alex. I appreciate that. The other alternative is, of course, continue to pay rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you mention rent here in Northern Michigan, we all know people that are paying what I would consider substantial amounts of money to rent.
Yeah.
So how do you what factors do you take into consideration of whether I continue paying rent or I make the transition into home ownership? Alex, let's start with you. What are those factors that folks need to be looking at or should be looking at and having discussions about when it comes to making that possible transition or decision?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things. From our perspective, obviously, the number one thing is budget. What does that look like for your finances? And some of those things that you have to roll into that is when you're renting, then you're not necessarily paying the taxes. You're not necessarily paying the insurance, things like that. But you're also not gaining that equity. So if you have the ability to make that mortgage payment in the long run, it's going to be beneficial to you to get that mortgage and begin to build that equity. As long as it makes sense with your budget today, having that plan for what that future looks like. We've actually got a pretty neat tool on our website that really kind of helps walk through a very quick budget to see if you'd be able to afford that, but also be able to see what that equity looks like 30 years from now if you did purchasing versus renting today.
Yeah, I mean, you look at mortgage payments, even including those taxes and maintenance and upkeep and all those things. It's not. It's pretty comparable, if not less, than a lot of the rents that people are paying for apartments. It's kind of eye opening. Jamie, when someone comes in and asks you that question, what are you telling them? You're a real estate agent. Let's just put that disclaimer out. Okay, but that doesn't mean you can't give valid advice. So what are you telling people when they're like, this is what I pay in rent? What do I need to consider when I'm potentially transitioning into home ownership?
Sure. And I mean, I think even though I'm a real estate agent and obviously I want to sell them a home, not everybody fits into that perfect mold. You know, some people it's too soon, they haven't saved enough, whatever it is. I tried to do a buyer consultation with young buyers, first-time buyers who have never, maybe they're transitioning from mom and dad's house and they've never had a house at all. And they're coming in and they're pre-approved for $2,500 a month house payment. And, I'm like, hey guys, you might want to look at like the cost of toilet paper. Do you plan to have children? Do you, some things to think about. And I know it's a little off topic with what you directly asked, but at the end of the day, every situation looks a little different. And I think if somebody is looking to buy, they have to have a certain level of commitment. They have to have a certain level of understanding of that commitment and what goes along with it. Because if they're using their whole nest egg for their down payment, but they've not really considered if their furnace goes, what are they going to do? Things like that. So I started a few years ago actually bringing them in before we even meet at a house, and especially people who just maybe are really new to the whole experience and trying to explain those things to them. And there are some times when they're like, wow, I never thought about those things. Maybe we need to save more. Maybe I need to wait for that raise to come. Maybe it's better to save and stay in mom's basement a little bit longer just to put themselves in a better position. Because those are the type of people that get in over their head and call me 2 years later and they're like, Jamie, what did I do? I'm 3 months behind on my mortgage, so-and-so lost their job, whatever, and then they're underwater. And that's what we really want to avoid.
Absolutely. How important is it that as somebody that may be buying, how important is it that we have frank, open, and honest discussions with all of our concerns with each of you? Alex, I'm going to start with you. If somebody walks into the credit union and says, I think I want to buy a house, is somebody there that can help walk us through exactly what we need to know?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We've got people here every day that will help walk people through whether the affordability of a home. We have financial counselors on staff that can help people understand if that budget makes sense. Can we fit a house payment in there? And we love doing that. I mean, that's one of our biggest things that we get a rise out of doing, taking care of those people.
Yeah, and I imagine that a lot of people, we read the headlines, we have this preconceived notion of, well, I can't afford a house. I can't buy, I'm trapped or whatever, or no, this is what I have to do this. And maybe when we come talk to somebody that actually is an expert in finances, they could walk us through that. Maybe there are some other things that we're not considering or some other options out there. That's probably accurate. You're nodding your head, so I've got to believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, the only other point to that is the credit score. I mean, if your credit score isn't great, obviously you're going to be paying a higher interest rate. So that's something to be working on even before you're thinking it's time to buy a house. Work on that credit score because that's going to save you money in the long term. If you can get that credit score up, drops that rate down, you're going to be able to afford more of a house. So get working on that early.
Mm-hmm.
So be prepared. Don't decide, hey, this weekend, I think I'm going to go buy a house.
Correct.
Like, do your homework, get yourself into as good financial shape as you possibly can. Come in and talk to your financial institution and then go talk to your real estate agent and they can provide a really good knowledge. Well, what can they provide for that person that is possibly making that consideration?
Well, I mean, I can say that when somebody comes in just off the street or a phone call, our job, and I can speak for Alex on this too, because we partner in a lot of things, and both Forest Area and myself, we try to work with integrity. So it's not always just about getting the deal done then. It's about building these relationships with these people to have long-lasting relationships and put them in the best situation that they can be in so that they're happy and they're doing what's right for them and their families and their future. So at the end of the day, somebody may come in and I might spend an hour with them because they have terrible credit and they don't know where to begin. And so, I mean, we start at the beginning and I say, work on this to start with. Okay, you think you've got this done, call me. They call me and I say, okay, now it's time to go to Forest Area and let them start running the stuff and put your file together. And then they might say at Forest Area, you need to now pay this down or pay this off. And so it's a kind of a team event where as long as the buyer, the lender, and the agent are all working together, there's absolutely no reason that anybody can't be a homeowner. It's just doing the right things. And when we give suggestions and we give ideas on where they need to make changes, they just have to do it. That's the hard part.
So yeah. So it's really a partnership because it sounds like our real estate agent and our financial institution want us to be successful, right?
Absolutely.
They're not working against you in this situation. They're working with you. And we should be turning to those people to help us through that process. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I see head nodding.
Yeah, I think at either place, if you were to just call, walk in, ask questions, we're going to at least give you the first few steps to take. Okay. You finish those steps, we'll give you the next ones. So nobody should be afraid. And I want to touch on one other thing, if you don't mind, a little bit of a side note. A lot of people are horrified because they've destroyed their credit, right? And they're so embarrassed that they feel like there's just, big scar that they're wearing that they don't want anybody to see. But the reality is if they come see myself or Forest Area, a lot of times we can get them turned back around. And so a lot of people are allowing past mistakes with their finances to cripple them from being a homeowner. And that's just not the reality. I see it all the time. Alex does too. Don't be ashamed of that. Start fixing it. Let us help you.
Yeah, we actually have a number of stories of people that will come in, and we tell them not today, but you
Yes.
do these things, and we'll make it happen. And there's a number of people a year later, after they've accomplished A, B, C, D, and E, they come back and we give them that mortgage, we give them that loan because they've done all the things we've asked them to do. They've cleaned their credit up, they get their mortgage, and they perform well on it. So we see it not every day, but we see it often.
Mm-hmm. And those are so rewarding.
Oh, I'm sure. And doing nothing gets you nowhere, right? Like
Right.
The situation doesn't change if you don't stare into the abyss and actually do something about it, right? So, well, I love ending on that positive note. So that makes me feel good. So we're gonna sign off for now. Jamie, Alex, thank you so much for taking some time to be with us tonight and helping us better understand what we should be doing in order to consider becoming homeowners.
Appreciate it, Mark.
Great.
All right.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you. See you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.